everyone, Nubkeks here, and welcome back to Heroes of the Storm. Hope you're all having a good day. I'm enjoying a nice cup of chai tea, helping me out with my cold, which just refuses to go away. It's very sad. It's very sad. In today's video, though, we are going to be playing as Brightwing. It's been a while since I brought you guys a Brightwing video, and she has remained consistently one of the absolute best healers, one of the best support characters in Hero League. Just in the game in general for a long time. She's got great sustained healing, she's got global presence, she can shut down melee assassins with her polymorph, everything like that. But she brings a lot of strengths to the team that are really great in the current meta. Not great at burst healing, but you can kind of get away with that a little bit, I think, given how they've nerfed assassins recently. Yeah, this should be a pretty interesting game. I do pull off a few, I think, pretty cool little Brightwing moves. A couple of cool little Brightwing mistakes as well. So you'll get to sort of see those in action. I think it should be really interesting. Pick up a few tips on how to play. But more importantly, I think you're going to pick up... I think it's a really interesting look, and I'm going to be discussing this in detail in this game. But the idea of different skill levels of play and how they work when they're shifted into different roles in the game. Primarily in this case, I'm going to be talking about what happens when there's a big skill differential, just the way it happened in this game, between the damage dealers and then the sort of supporting characters, the warriors, the support players. In this game, I thought in particular that I thought that our Li Ming player and our Grey main, not that they're objectively bad in the sense of being, I don't know, whatever you consider objectively bad to be, but rather that they were weaker than the rest of our team. And again, I don't know how much that is. You can draw your own judgment throughout this game. Especially should be easier now that I pointed it out. But I felt that, for example, let's say that let's say Rexar and Medivh were Diamond 2 or Diamond 1 or something, that these guys were like Diamond 4 or Diamond 5. Something along those lines. I have no idea what it was. All I know is that when I was playing this game, I very quickly noticed during the gameplay, while I was playing it live, that I was like, okay, shit, our damage dealers are much weaker. This is going to be difficult. We're going to have to adjust how we play or adjust expectations, and it could be a challenge for sure. For example, right at the start right there, I was kind of talking over it. I don't know if you noticed, but I was also looking at the minimap while it happened, right? Is we had this big fucking fight in the mid near the vision point. Shit was going down for quite a while, from the start, right? Shit never stopped going down either. It was consistently going down. There was never a point at which the shit stopped going down, and then it was, kind of as a surprise, as a somewhat unexpected event, the shit started going down again. No, it was consistently going down. Yeah. Li Ming was off fucking farming the minions in the mid lane. I was like, excuse me, what? We're dying over here. Like we're still fighting this team fight, and you just left, and I died. I was kind of like, well, that's where did you go? What was so important about these minions that you would leave the team fight to do that? That didn't make no sense to me. Anyway, that was just a small thing. There's going to be several other things throughout this video. Also, I find it like a really curious thing, right, for myself commentating, is whether you guys will always pick up on that stuff, because a couple of times I would kind of criticize people in the video, and I would feel most definitely that they were weaker players, but people in commenting and stuff wouldn't see that at all. I think it is true, though, for sure. I'm usually pretty confident about how I read the game. That's why I do videos, right? And I think that this game certainly is quite a stark example, so that shouldn't be an issue. It won't be like a more subtle thing, a couple of them are like Grandmasters and a few of them are Masters or something like that. And that might be difficult to detect, especially when you're not playing. It's more obvious when you are playing, because your brain just works faster, right? As opposed to when you're watching, when you can kind of sit back and relax a little bit more. Not like the constant sort of calculation stuff that are going on. Anyway, for example, right there, like we saw in that fight before, where Li Ming just kind of fucking walked out of the bush and Kerrigan killed her and was like, okay. And then she was confused about it. It was like, yeah, no, that was just silly. That was just silly. But regardless, let's talk about that idea just a bit more. We're fighting over this tribute. We've obviously lost it at this stage. Everyone is dead. We sidestepped the Kerrigan thing, though, so at least we're not going to die. Just kind of poke them a little bit, but there's nothing much to do. I expect I'm probably going to Hearthstone here and teleport somewhere. I'll talk about my talents as well. It's funny, I thought the talents were good I chose them at a level 1, what I would be picking at 1, 4, and 7. I went into it expecting they were good, and then related to basically the sort of skill thing that I want to be talking about in this video in particular, I think that turned out to be a very bad idea, and I should have picked different talents. But we'll sort of explore whether I should have known that in a little while. But first of all, let me explain this a bit more. So I think it's basically, I think a good analogy to sort of explain this. I did a sports analogy in the last video, or one of the last videos, and I got slagged off for that quite a lot. It's like when I was in school, I'd always get like A's, mostly A's, and a few B's and stuff in all the subjects, except for PE, you know, physical education, all the sports and everything, where I get like D's or just fail. I was really bad at all that stuff, pretty much consistently. From about the ages of, I don't know, 5 to 18 when I left school. Yeah, that was the story of my report cards. So, yeah. Maybe I'll steer away from the sports analogies. I don't know. I thought it was a good analogy last time. I did. There's the Vala Hero League video where we're disconnecting. So I think a good analogy to explain this idea of what it's like when you have like your more skilled players, again, on like the Medivh, Brightwing, and Rexar, and then like the weaker skilled players in the team are on the damage dealers. It's a bit like having a computer, right? If anyone's ever built a computer, or like specifically for gaming, which I presume many of you probably have done, or researched it, or been looking into what to do, what to buy, you'll know the idea of like the CPU and GPU and bottlenecking. You know, it's like to run games well, you know, you don't want a really shitty CPU and then like the best graphics card in the world, because like sure, you got the best graphics card in the world, but your CPU is going to be so weak that you're not actually going to get good performance. The CPU is going to bottleneck and it's going to hold you back. Likewise, you don't want a really, really good CPU, like the best CPU in the world, and then a terrible graphics card, because then you're just not going to have the graphics power to actually make it good. Make the game run well. What you want, because it gets bottlenecked, what you want is it's a pretty good balance between the two. I suppose, particularly in terms of PCs for gaming, you probably want, you know, a better, slightly better graphics card than CPU, because the graphics cards are typically more important. But you still want them to be relatively balanced so that, you know, one isn't holding the other back. It's a similar thing I feel in Heroes of the Storm. And now, I don't actually have any statistics to back this up. Like, I'm really curious. I've always been super curious to know. And you probably heard me mention it if you've been watching the channel for a while. In a few different videos, you know, how does kind of skill divisions affect things? I suspect, for example, that I do suspect that much like a gaming PC, you want, you know, your graphics card to be the best thing. I do suspect that you want, you know, at least one of your assassin players, like at least one of your damage dealers, because they are usually the most fast-paced and in some ways kind of mechanically fast-paced heroes, to be one of your better players. But I only suspect that. I don't actually know. It's just my gut feeling as opposed to any, you know, proper empirical research. Where was I going with this? Oh my god, I lost my train of thought. This is terrible. What a disaster. But yeah, I certainly would say, actually, that regardless of whether it actually works out better, I certainly think that it feels very frustrating. And I've had this experience a couple of times, and I thought this game would be a good example of it. Had the experience a couple of times where you get into a game and it's and you very much have, you're playing a support and your damage dealers are much, much weaker, and it becomes this very frustrating experience. Regardless of whether it affects win rates or not, it is a very frustrating experience. For example, I think one of the things I would say about it is that it's like, as a support, I thought this was interesting. I thought I polymorphed him before that fired, but it actually did fire. So that was kind of intriguing. I guess there's a bit of an animation or something to it. I don't know. I was certainly couldn't get close to the line anyway, regardless. But yeah, actually, let me just mention a bit about the gameplay before I talk about this anymore. So generally speaking, the stuff I'm going to be looking to do in this game, I'll be doing a lot of blink heal tricks, for example. Kind of surprising the enemy team with how I move with the blink heal. So either getting them to sort of commit to chasing me or doing damage to me, and then I blink heal in a direction they don't expect. Or this was kind of interesting. I was actually kind of flabbergasted by the damage that came out right there. It happened so fast, I didn't even cleanse anyone. It was pretty terrible. I potentially could have saved one of them if I cleansed them, but I really didn't see it coming. So I don't know, that was a kind of a crazy play. They just melted. It was nuts. Kel'Thuz, pretty strong. Yeah, Kel'Thuz, by the way, is probably the enemy team's best player. That's also worth noting. Yeah, so I was hoping to bribe this Bruiser camp away as well. I was like, God damn it, I've been sitting on these stacks of this frickin' bribe talent I wanted to try out. I can't even use it. This is a disaster. But yeah, I think it's like, if you got good players on these sort of supporting characters, like, I mean, another good example would be Johanna, as this very supporty type warrior, all about setting up your teammates, creating great map positioning and zoning and stuff in the game. It's like if your assassins aren't good enough to actually follow up on that, then a lot of the skill there can be wasted. And you could really struggle, whereas like a good assassin kind of plays a bit more around them. This is a nuts play, by the way. Let's just watch this and enjoy it. I was like, there's no way Medivh's gonna pull this off. I was like, no, this is actually working. Okay, let's go in. Let's do it. Complete chaos, by the way. Blink heal out of the sort of AoE damage there. He even picks up the Zarya. The Rexar picked up the kill on the Zarya, I believe. Li Ming might have helped there too. But absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. 5 enemy team members on the boss taking it. We've been losing the game. The Greymane goes in, dies. Medivh single-handedly goes in and saves their butts. Absolutely incredible stuff. I did make a mistake there, by the way. I picked up the Shielding Dust talent at level 13, which makes my Pixie Dust apply 40% spell shield to the heroes. I was trying to like time it perfectly on the Li Ming, and then I missed. So whoops. I think I actually tested out on the Rexar here. It's like, okay, let's actually investigate the sort of travel time on this. All right, got a bit of a feeling for the travel time. Try not to mess that up again. But yeah, unbelievable. The polybomb absolutely doing work. The enemy team, just the chaos of it, they couldn't quite work out. Okay, well, we need to stand on the point. Well, who gets off the point? Who stays on? What are we doing? It's very intriguing. Very intriguing. I just come in, I was trying to get Greymane to go away with pings and stuff. He wasn't. So I just said, like, fuck it, and spent the Pixie Charm thing. I was kind of reached the point where I was like, I'm not actually going to be able to use this level 1 talent unless I just go and spend it on the worst camp. And even like Greymane's gonna take it, it's only gonna save us a few seconds, but I just want to spend it so we're actually getting some value out of that bribe as opposed to getting absolutely nothing. So that was kind of the thought process there. Yeah, I'll also be looking to Pixie Dust people to protect them from the Kerrigan basic attacks. Obviously you have to be a bit careful because the Zarya basic attack will just shred through the block stacks that my Pixie Dust gives very quickly. And for the most part, now that we've hit level 13, we've got Shielding Dust, I'll mostly actually be using the Pixie Dust in order to apply the sort of slightly weaker spell shields to people to protect them from the Kel'Thuz burst and from the Kerrigan burst and what the other abilities that the other heroes are throwing out as well. It's mostly going to be for the ability damage stuff right now, and then Polymorph on any sort of opportune targets, preferably I suppose a Kerrigan who jumps in, Polymorph her, get her sort of out. And yeah, we'll see how that works, and then just landing Q on whoever we can, investigating who is it that disconnected. It's the Rexar. That's not good. Yeah, that's some of the stuff I'm going to be looking to do. But yeah, I think the ideal has to be that you have a pretty even mix in terms of your skill distribution. You have a pretty even mix. It's something that I always found very challenging in like the viewer games that I would do. Is people would be like, all right, well, let's build a team comp. What's the ideal way to build a team comp? And I'd be kind of going, well, I honestly don't know, because we've got such a range of like different skill levels and different types of players in this game. Like I was just like, let's just wing it basically, and people play what they want to play and what they enjoy playing, because I have no idea what a good team comp is. I could probably give you a very good idea of a good team comp in pro games, a very good idea of good team comps in like sort of grandmaster games, even pretty good at diamond. It gets a little bit dodgier than at the lower tiers, but certainly when you start mixing up the tiers, it gets very confusing. I mean, let's say for example you had one bronze player, let's say all in sort of division 3 of their respective leagues, like a bronze, silver, a gold, a platinum, and a diamond player. You've got one of each. You know, how do you build a team? You know, which roles would you assign them to? Honestly, I don't have a clue, right? I don't have a clue how you do that. That's a particular meta, a very unusual meta. that would only come up at certain times. This is kind of interesting too, by the way. Lol. So with the Zarya thing and channeling that, it's like, fool me once, shame on me. No, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me the third time, JK, you didn't fool me, I baited you in and I killed you. So that was basically what happened there, the Zarya interrupting me, and the third time we get her, we blink, heal in, get her with the polymorph, and she gets completely collapsed upon for trying to interrupt. So that was kind of nice and well played by a team as well for noting that she was going to do that. I'm just pinging to let my teammates know I'm coming. I've got the teleport in. It's a bit annoyed, like for example right there, I thought that was a really great opportunity to go aggressive. Medivh's coming in, I pinged to let them know I was going in, but instead of like moving in aggressively on the Kerrigan, the Li Ming just actually backs away, and that delays us going into this fight. Li Ming dies. It's actually hilarious. I had to watch this back because again I was so confused. I did not know what happened. What happened, by the way, in case you didn't catch it either, she walked through the giant minion wave, she tanked up the entire minion wave to about a third of her HP, from max HP to a third of her HP, lost it all because she walked through a big minion wave that was attacking her. She like stepped into Kerrigan's Maelstrom and then Kerrigan Q'd her. I think that was it. Maybe the ETC did a bit of damage, I don't know. But shout out to people who play Hearthstone as well, a bit of a Hearthstone quote right there thrown in. I'm being a bit sarcastic, but hopefully in a pretty fun and friendly way. I think this is important too. Like during this game, right? It's just like I despise playing support when I feel that like my damage dealers are weaker players. I find it very frustrating. For example, like teleporting in on the Li Ming and she backs off. I personally find that very frustrating. However, I hope that doesn't actually come through in any of the gameplay, that you shouldn't know from watching this that I'm frustrated or that I'm annoyed. I should still be playing. And this is what hopefully will be true for everyone. You should still be playing your best game effectively. You should still be playing as if things are going well. It shouldn't be obvious that I'm tilted or annoyed. Certainly you can see there's been, well, there's the extraordinary comment in the chat, but that was somewhat playful, I suppose. There's been like no like rage or criticism or anything like that. I mean, inside in my head I'm going, please kill me, this is horrific, this is so but this is a shitty game to play for me. But like that, my teammates should have no idea whatsoever, and by watching the gameplay or the chat there should be no indication that that's actually what's going on in my head, because I think that does nothing except it's just kind of being a bit whiny. It just makes it a worse experience. It makes the game a negative experience for your teammates. It makes it a more negative experience for you. I just don't see any reason to let that in. Now certainly I'm not saying I never do. I think especially if you had a few games in a row that are terrible. I mean, I had that the other day. I was doing some late night games and literally like about 3 games in a row that were absolutely terrible. And at that stage I was just like, alright, I'm sick of it, I'm done. I'm turning the game off and I'm not playing anymore, because I am getting to the point where this will call over into the gameplay. But yeah, generally speaking, you shouldn't see any of that kind of coming through. That was by the way, I hope you might have been watching that play while it's going on. I thought that was a really good call by me, and really interesting. It's something you probably see me do a lot actually in games, of sort of bluffing out in terms of positioning, right? So I saw the enemy team were quite split up across the map and quite focused as well on the top lane. So I pinged onto the boss. We were in actually a very good position. We had vision control of top too. In a very good position to actually just take the boss. And we would have got the boss quite low before the enemy team arrived. On top of that then, instead of going to the boss as Brightwing, I went and I started split pushing the bottom lane, soaking the XP. This is something you do a lot on Brightwing, is you split very far away from your teammates into this very distant side lane. And then you teleport in with your phase shift, with your mount ability into the fight. So you do arrive late. Or you still arrive on time because you can just instantly teleport in effectively, but you do get, you know, that extra bit of XP, that extra bit of map pressure because you're in that side lane splitting. So for the enemy team, from what they could see on the map, that should be the sort of information they're drawing from it is, okay, Brightwing is down bottom, she's probably doing the Brightwing split push thing, if she's good, and that could mean that the enemy, the rest of the enemy team is looking in to push up aggressively here at the top. Maybe they're trying to push in towards the boss, or they're coming to gank us. We don't quite have the vision. There's a lot of fog of war. We're not sure, and we kind of have to run in fear. So that was kind of the bluff I was trying to put in. Eventually they sort of worked it out, and they arrived, or they started coming down towards the boss, but by the time they did, it was too late. So I think that's kind of like an important little bluff thing you can do. It'd be quite unusual, right, for your teammates are doing the boss and you're on Brightwing and like you're literally just 5 foot away from them, really. But you're not actually in there actually healing them up with that constant, persistent healing that you do. You think that's a pretty good thing to have at the boss. It's quite weird that you'd be sitting in the lane, but that's exactly why. It's because it should be a bluff. They shouldn't expect it. Should be kind of taken by surprise. And I can kind of play off that. So that was a kind of a nifty little move again. That's one of the things that I was kind of it did make some enjoyment for me in the game as well. Was that I was like, all right, even though it's kind of gone to shit, I still thought there were some like really interesting and cool plays that I was able to make, and cool calls, and like that Medivh play pretty much just makes this video worth publishing on its own. That was insane, that Medivh boss play. Yeah, all that sort of stuff kind of combines together. That was a bit unfortunate, by the way. Blinked heal onto the Greymane. He did his dash, but that's the way it worked is that he like dashed as I arrived, so I didn't actually travel the full distance, and they're kind of out of range. I wanted to blink in and polymorph the Kerrigan. It didn't quite work out, but it was a good attempt nonetheless, I think. There you go. As far as things stand on the map right now, by the way, we are pretty much even on XP. That's not going to be really relevant for the rest of the game at all. However, we are down the mid keep. The enemy team still has all their keeps, so the bottom two are damaged, though that's not overly important, honestly, at this stage. And they've got bruisers pushed in, and the mid lane will obviously be pushing in towards us as well. Good scouting by Medivh, keeping an eye on them. So let's pay a bit of attention, I suppose, to the actual game at the end and kind of summarize some of the thoughts and things I like about that. So for example, right here we can see again, that was the potential right there for a very aggressive sort of a move that we could have pulled off. Right, we saw that the Rexar with the Misha was stalling out the enemy team, and Kerrigan was just going to face check this bush that Greymane was sitting in. Probably couldn't have committed enough to kill her, but certainly with me teleporting in, myself and the Greymane could have done a lot of damage to her. Got her quite low. Oriel might have had to use up her shield or her heal or her heroic or something like that, or Kerrigan might have had to panic or do something, and there you go. For example, right there you can see in terms of the hero damage, Greymane's hero damage is really awful. He's only done a tiny bit more than me, and you know, I'm on Brightwing, so that's pretty bad. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the weaknesses of the players, I thought that the Li Ming made a couple of like very large mistakes, which is why I would say that she was playing a bit weaker. And then for the Greymane, he didn't make any large mistakes, but it was clearly there was a lot of opportunities that he wasn't taking in terms of his map movement and stuff like that. For example, there's a prolonged period in the game where it was myself and Medivh down in bottom lane. I was like, where are our teammates? What are they doing? Why are they not here? What is going on? Anyway, here we go. We're going to have a big fight here. Medivh actually gets picked off. This is bad because Medivh has been playing really well. We get sucked into the void thingy, but we are able to blink heal out of it and escape right there. Give Rexar a speed boost so he can maybe escape from there. Assume that Greymane is going ham down. He's in the enemy backline. That's pretty nice. So we jump on top of him with the face shield, try to keep him alive. He goes into stealth. Kerrigan actually jumps on us. We blink heal over. This is fantastic news. We're here helping out the Greymane, getting him those speed boosts, getting him in on top of the Kael'thas, giving him heals, giving him that spell shield to help him survive. And there you go. We actually pick off KT. With the enemy team split up and their attention messed up, we actually take out another two heroes as well. So I'm not exactly sure how the Rexar, I know Rexar played, popped his Hardened Shield to soak up quite a lot of damage. I'm not sure exactly how he and Li Ming played the rest of it. We didn't catch it, but they obviously played it very well. And then it just worked out fantastically. Like I said, right, very important, Kael'thas. And there you go. That's the whole enemy team is dead. Awesome. Our core is on 56%, but the whole enemy team is dead. This is fantastic stuff. Kael'thas was their best player, right? And Kael'thas was kind of at the back. Greymane was diving him for the whole time, just getting him out of the fight and getting him into 1v1. I've been critical of the Greymane. He actually played that really well, right? And this is what I was talking about too, is that, you know, having a good player on support, you kind of rely on your damage dealers also being good so that you can use your skills as a support to help them out. And, you know, if they do something really bad, sometimes that you're actually being completely useless as a support because you're completely blindsided by it. For example, Li Ming basically dying to a minion wave. I probably could have protected her a bit more from that, but soaking up and dying to a giant minion wave is just something that I'd have zero expectation could actually happen. So blindsided by that happening that I wasn't actually able to help her out because I just would never expect that to be a thing. But yeah, you see Greymane, he goes in, spotted that he went in, stuff was going down, was able to teleport in on him and then enable his dive into the backline, enable him to pick up that kill on the Kael'thas, blam, the enemy team's biggest damage dealer is taken out of the fight. It just so happened, we are very lucky actually in that as well, that Kerrigan, that after I teleported in onto the Greymane, the Kerrigan jumped in on top of me, used all of her combo on me, and then I was able to just barely on the edge of the range blink heal back onto the Kerrigan. I'm baiting the ETC at this point, by the way, expecting I could blink heal back onto the minions. The knockback actually made it a bit slower than I expected, took a bit more damage than I expected. But now the enemy team, once again, they're very split up, right? They're very, very split up. And they're in a pretty tough spot. In fact, the Kerrigan has already been killed. The rest of them are pretty low. So that's really nice. That worked out actually really well. That's sort of baiting the ETC in with the blink heal. So that was kind of a nifty little move. You can blink onto the minions. I saw the minion wave was coming and intended it to work out. The execution was a bit sloppy, I thought, because ETC caught me out a little bit more than I expected. But it worked out in the end, quite to our advantage. And here we are, we're on the core. We got the boss on the core. We got nukes on the core. And this is going to be game and unbelievable. We're actually going to win. But yeah, I mean, that, again, a couple of team fights. I'd say that last team fight up towards the north side of the map was crazy. Medivh, who've been playing really well, got picked off right at the start, but we still turned it around. The Greymane singling out the Kel'Thuzz. We were able to enable him. That turned it around. The luck with the Kerrigan, and then us being able to blink heal out of it, and suddenly she was out of the fight. Rexxar and then Li Ming winning the rest of the fight, because the two damage dealers, really, of the enemy team were pretty much taken out of it. And yeah, we just kind of turned it around, and huge win for us. And suddenly we went from losing really hard to winning. Part of it was that Greymane went from really not doing very much at all during the entire game to doing the Greymane thing really well, which was diving and exploding the enemy mage on the backline. He executed that very well at the end. I was able to help it out, and stuff fell into place, right? I thought it was really interesting example in this game of how it can work really badly when you have like these sort of, for example, you can see right there the hero damage Greymane. He went from being, I think, 27k to me being on 23k. He kind of made up for all of that right at the end in terms of how he was playing. Really intriguing, I thought. Really intriguing. He did something like almost 50k damage at the end. You know, he did most of his damage in the last like 2 minutes of the game. Most of his hero damage. Really back-ended onto it. But yeah, I mean, that sort of he made this one really good team fight play. I was able to support it, and suddenly the whole dynamic of the game changed. Really interesting. I thought it was really cool to look into it. And yeah, I mean, I suppose that the thought is, like, if you have, you know, a bronze player, silver player, gold, platinum, and a diamond player, how do you arrange them on the team? What do you do? It's so difficult. Like, let's say again, they all say, I like playing assassins the best. We're all Li Ming mains. How do you create a good team then? Like, who do you put on the warrior? Who do you put on the range damage? Who do you put on the melee damage? Or the second warrior? What? How do you set it up? I think it's a very difficult thing to do, because it's not a normal a meta type thing. But yeah, certainly in this draft that we had here, it was unranked draft, but certainly in this game, I thought it was really interesting, and I hope that it was quite clear to you guys too. From the Li Ming making a few very large mistakes, and being very confused in the chat about it, being very confused about what exactly is going on, which is very funny. And then the Greymane just really being very unimpactful and not doing much hero damage until the end. You can see there's a very particular dynamic that went through this game, and a lot of luck kind of on our side, and some mistakes from the enemy team. Like, for example, in terms of getting just outplayed massively by the Medivh and not being able to deal with it on that boss fight. That boss fight was fantastic. But yeah, I thought it was a really interesting look into the dynamics of that and how it can work out. I do think, generally speaking, you probably want, like I said, you don't want any bottlenecks. You want a relatively even distribution. You want, at least one good player on a sort of supporting type hero like the warrior, or the support, or the pseudo support like Medivh, and then you want probably at least one very good damage dealer. I think you could have one quite weak damage dealer, and that's going to be fine, so long as one of them is doing pretty good. And like if you got a pretty good set of supporting heroes, you got a pretty good damage dealer, then the weaker damage dealer, they can usually be pretty successful anyway, because the rest of the team is playing well. They're creating good map pressure and team fight control, which kind of enables them to do a little bit better. But certainly when you've got everyone playing this sort of like, we want to support and enable our damage dealers, and they're quite weak, they don't even recognize the opportunities that they can take advantage of, that you're trying to take advantage of, that you're trying to enable them to take, and they don't actually take it. They're just backing away when you're phase shifting in on them, for example, like we saw in this game. It becomes very difficult. It really doesn't function very well. So there you go. Lots of thoughts on that. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was an intriguing, a fairly meta look into this particular game. I have to say, there wasn't too much in the Brightwing, so I apologize for that. But Brightwing hasn't changed too much. I hope you still picked up some cool tips on how to use Blink Heal. I know people are running Emerald Wind a lot at the moment, so hopefully this was a pretty cool look into a few things you can do in terms of the Blink Heal. And yeah, also the sort of the stuff I was talking about as well in terms of like bluffing the boss. So you can take sort of bosses sometimes and creating that bluff, and what do the enemy team see? What do they expect? And in particular, in this case, it was the whole Brightwing split push. She's going to be teleporting into the other side of the map, and we expect then the enemy team, in this case, like our team, my team, would be moving into the top part of the map. Actually, we're taking the boss right beside me, playing that sort of bluff card. Kind of interesting. And shout out to Medivh. That was fucking awesome boss play, by the way, too. Guys, give it a like, give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and do let me know what you thought in the comments down below, because there's a lot of sort of big questions being asked in this one. And yeah, I will see you all next time for some more Heroes of the Storm. Bye bye.